Hey, guys. Altovise here, your voice manager. Uh, and I unmute the voice of women who are ready to speak up about what has kept her silent for way too long. This is another episode of the #SpeakEasy Podcast, and I'm excited. Why? I always get excited when I come and talk to you guys. But not just that, guys. Awakening the power of your soul. Listen. I need you to tap in. I need you to find a quiet spot, listen to this episode. You'll probably want to download it so that way you can replay it later. This is going to be one to help inspire you to get through not only this year, but many years to come. With that being said, I want to say hello to my guest for today. Hello, Christian. How are you?
So glad to be on the show, Altovise. Thank
I
you.
am glad to have you here. So there are so many ways that we can have this conversation go. But first, let's start with you introducing yourself to the studio audience.
Well, I'm an author, I'm a retreat facilitator, I'm a TEDx speaker, and the author of this new book, Awakening the Soul of Power.
Awesome. I absolutely love it. So when we think about what that means, awakening the soul of power, start at the very beginning. What does awakening the soul of power mean for you?
All right, well, most of us have an ambivalent relationship to power. We want it, but we're afraid of it. And I think at the root of that is a fear that we might abuse it. And so no wonder, all we got to do is turn on the news on any given day and witness multiple abuses of power, which we have also seen countless examples of throughout our lives. And add to that is the conditioning, right? We've been taught that power is bad, like power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. What they forgot to tell us is that that phrase was speaking specifically about political power, not the interpersonal power that we're talking about. So add to that mix the fact that we're also conditioned to be afraid of the emotions. We've labeled the emotions weakness. And so we hate confrontation. We run away from conflict. And so what happens when you put all that in together is we end up giving away our power. We end up selling ourselves short. We end up playing small and settling for illusion of security, for a false sense of security, and for morsels of pseudo love, which is not a good strategy in life.
No, it most definitely is not. And I see that with a lot of entrepreneurs who are within that first 5 years of business because they're trying to figure out where they fit in. That if I come in and I come in too headstrong, as that's one of those terminologies that's used. If I come in too headstrong, then people won't want to buy my products or they won't want my services. But in all of that, a lot of times they're missing out on some key elements, like the fact that even though this may be the day one in your business, it's not your day one.
Yeah, exactly. Altovise is like when we approach any interaction or negotiation, whether it's personal or business, without having a strong sense of self, from having, maybe so many of us who suffer from the imposter syndrome. So we're automatically approaching it from a place of disempowerment if we've allowed those self-doubts to take hold of us. So automatically we even get going into the negotiation already selling out, already diminishing ourselves. And again, it's not an effective strategy.
No, it is not. And they talk about those entrepreneurs don't make it past 5 years. A lot of times, this is part of that main reasoning why. Now, I know for me, it's been an interesting journey kind of tapping into what is powerful for me
Mhm.
that at one point was considered not powerful. So as an introvert, I had to learn what my superpowers were, what my actual powers were, and it's kind of crazy because just simple things like, oh, you're too quiet, you're too shy in a room, you're too quiet. But as an introvert, my power is that I can literally read a room whenever I go into a room. And so whereas people from the outside would say, oh no, you're too quiet. For me, it's like, no, I'm quiet because I'm deliberate.
Well, I totally relate. As a fellow introvert, I totally get what you're talking about. I was so shy, Altovise, and so introverted as a teenager that I was okay one-on-one. But if you added a third human, I shut down. I clammed up to the degree that I had all A's in high school. I was a good student, except for one B, and which I got on my last semester as a senior. And looking back on it, I didn't do this consciously or intentionally, but looking back on it, I know that I sabotaged my GPA so that I wouldn't have to get in front of a group of an auditorium filled with hundreds of people and give the valedictorian speech, because there is no way that I would have been ready to do that. There's no way. And so, the reason that I think that story is powerful, because these days, I speak all over the world. I'm a TEDx speaker. I speak to thousands of people. And so that I know for all the other entrepreneurs out there, that whatever fears, whatever obstacles we have allowed to be held back by, that all that stuff can be transcended. All that stuff can be overcome, and it can be healed.
So now when we talk about awakening the soul of power, what is the first piece that, someone may be saying, okay, well, it sounds like this is something that I really need, but where do I get started?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the first point is understanding, right? What our relationship to power is, and that there are different kinds of power, so that we understand that there are ways of stepping into power and expressing that power in a way that is okay with us, that it's congruent with our nature, that it's a match for who we are. So in other words, a lot of us don't want any part of this, what I call worldly power or ego power, which is hierarchical, which is about force and fear and domination, and which requires that we push somebody down, that we step on them, that we put our knee to their neck in order for us to prop ourselves up and feel powerful. And so what good-hearted person wants to do that? We don't want to do that. We don't want to abuse others. We don't want to be corrupted. So those are the reasons we give it away. But the message of this book is that there are ways that we can step into our power, so that we never again sell out, so that we never again say yes when inside we feel no, in a way that's a match for who we are.
I love that. And definitely in a way that's a match for us. Because I think a lot of times people think, oh, well, in order for me to tap into that power, I have to be something I'm not.
Exactly.
I'm not. Yeah. So that, I think that was I love that you said that, because I know from personal experience that has been the thought process. Why? Oh, well, no, I don't know if I can really speak up. I don't know if I can really say yes. I don't know if I can really charge my worth. No, I'll just go with whatever they say. And we end up doing ourselves and our clients a disservice.
Exactly. And I think everybody has this challenge in relationship to power. I think women in particular have an extra layer of it. And so we see, women that as they're rising, as they're reclaiming their own power, less now, but more, in the past and still today, but we see women who own, take on this masculine way of expressing themselves or expressing power. And even the way that they dress or do their hair is more masculine. And I understand it, right? We understand why that is, because we feel like that's what you got to do in order to be perceived as powerful. But those are just superficial ways of relating to power. The kind of power that I'm talking about, this soulful power, is inside each one of us. Everybody has it. Nobody can give it to us. Nobody can take it away. We are the only ones who can give it away, for all those
Ooh,
reasons that we were talking about before.
I love that you said that too, because I think that is empowering to anybody that's listening at the moment, that, it's inside of us. Nobody can take it. We give our power away. And I think now more than ever, we're starting to see that we can, not only did we give our power away, but we have the ability to take it back.
Exactly. And we are the only ones who can do that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely been something that's been eye-opening for a lot of people over the last year or so is that no, you can take your power back. There's some uncomfortable moments in taking your power back. So
Right.
I want you to speak to that a little bit because I know that's where the introvert is like, okay, I can take it back, but there goes that confrontation.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. That's why this book is the first of a series of three. That the name of the series is Calling All Heroes. So what I'm talking about is like how to live heroically, how to live a heroic life in the 21st century when we don't have a horse hitched outside or an armor or the demons to slay except the ones inside our own heads. So this is one of the ways in which we do that. How does a hero step into their power in a different way that again does not have to take away from anybody else, that doesn't have anything to prove, that just is? Because the way we think about power these days, we tend to associate with externals, right? People who have money, people who are famous, people who are high up in some kind of hierarchy, whether it's a corporate ladder or a religious institution. But all those expressions of power, because they're outside of us, they're fickle, right? They're here today, gone tomorrow. Whereas the other kind of power that we're talking about, that's inside each one of us, it's there. It has nothing to prove to anybody. It just is, and it's powerful.
Oh man. In this journey, when was a time that you felt as though you had the least amount of power?
Hmm, good question. I think it's been 30 years since I worked for a corporate environment. So I've been an entrepreneur for the last 30 years. But that job was the one that did me in because it was both my immediate supervisor, and I worked for a psychiatric and addictions hospital in the community relations department. And so the head of that community relations department and the chief of the whole hospital, the administrator, I mean, like people I did not respect, people that I just did not believe in them or the way they ran that hospital, lack of integrity. Um, and yet allowed myself to feel trapped, right, by that illusion of security of a biweekly paycheck. And so when finally, I can't remember how that happened, but I think they actually let me go. I think, yeah, that's what it was. I was sort of the scapegoat because I was the most recent hire. And they let me go because the numbers, the hospital wasn't doing well for a lot of different reasons. But in the beginning, I used to like feel victimized by that, like, and it was angry by the fact that I'd been let go, until I realized it's like, wait a minute, I didn't want to be there in the first place, and I hated that place, and I hated that job, and I didn't believe in the hospital, and I'd worked for other ones that I did believe in, and it wasn't the right environment, and it was like really bottom line oriented, and things were being done that were out of integrity, and I just lost heart. So they actually did me a favor because that's when I realized that I had a different path, and that was the very last job I had for like working for somebody else.
Oh my goodness. I feel everything you just said. I've been job free for a couple years now, and it was that job. It was me being me. I would give my 2 weeks, and then something would happen, and I'd say, okay, well, I'll change my date, until you find somebody else, or something would happen, and I'll go, okay, well, I'll extend my time, and I just felt myself being depleted,
Yes,
completely depleted.
yes.
And the straw that broke it for me was um, I'm a single mother. And so I would take off for certain things for my children. And they had a spring concert, and I requested off like 2 months in advance. And I was still put on the calendar. And no conversation was had or anything. And I said, okay. And so on my dinner break, I left and I went to their concert, and I came back about a half hour late, and I did not feel bad about it at all.
Yeah. So in your own way, you reclaimed your power.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
and that's what it was like for me too. Is like I felt like for probably a year afterwards, I felt victimized by them. I felt like I've been done wrong too, until I had like this wake up realization moment, and I realized, like I said, I didn't want to be there in the first place, and I saw my role in it as like I had overridden my gut feeling about that hospital because I knew something about it. I knew where it was in the city. It was I knew that it didn't have a great reputation, but I took the job out of fear of, how am I going to pay the bills? And so when I had that realization about, wait a minute, nobody forced me at gunpoint to take that job. It was my choice. That completely freed me up when I saw my role in it. And then that was one of the very last times in my life where I have felt victimized by anyone or anything. Because when we do that, when we're actually giving our power away, right? As long as we're holding somebody or something outside of us responsible for our state of being, we just give our power away again.
Ooh, I love that. It's been I think one of my favorite books that I read was Extreme Ownership. And it talks about, what they do when they're in the military, and just the type of ownership that they have to take. And I was just like, huh, I guess I'm kind of a wimp, huh?
Well, it's a human situation. It's a human condition. We're all wired that way. So what we're talking about on this journey of empowerment is like a leap in consciousness, which is, another expression to describe what you're talking about is radical personal accountability, where we take responsibility for every aspect in our lives. Because again, as long as we're holding mom for what she did, or dad for what he didn't do, or the teacher or the minister, or society, or sexism or racism or homophobia, if it only wasn't for that, then I would be happy. We're giving our power away.
And then we're also putting ourselves in a position to always expect somebody else to give us joy,
Yeah, exactly.
to give us
Exactly.
happiness. You know, it's putting the expectation on someone else, and we don't have to put that expectation on them. We can put the expectation on ourselves to be happy and to have joy. And so I love that it's been a journey. And Speakeasy Podcast listeners, for some of you, this is the journey that you're currently on, or this is the journey that you've been on, or it's the one you're going to be on. So I hope that this is something that's reigning true for you. If not, I want you to make sure that you connect. I want you to make sure that you get the book, because guess what? It's always um, a big help when you can see that there's someone who has been through the journey that you're currently in, and they've made it through on the other side. That part is so amazingly empowering, and it allows us not to quit, because sometimes when it comes time to like fight for yourself, we'll fight for everybody else, but when it comes time to fight for you, we shut down completely.
That's right. And yeah, I
Completely.
walk my talk. Like, everything I write about in this book is not something I picked up in a weekend workshop. It's stuff that I lived and that I continue to live. And so, my adolescence was one long depression with suicidal thoughts here and there, and hated myself. So, I mean, I know self-doubt, I know self-hatred. And these days, no matter what happens in my life, no matter the details, no matter the circumstances, a relationship works out or it doesn't. A project succeeds or it fails. I never question my sense of self. I never question my self-worth. And so that I know that if I can do this, if I can get through this place, I know anybody can.
Most definitely. Christian, let everybody know how they can get a copy of the book and where they can find you at online if they want to connect with you for more information. And also, is your TED Talk on YouTube? Because I'm sure they're going to ask
It
about
is.
that
The
too.
TEDx talk is on YouTube, and it's called The Power of the Breath. I'm a breathwork practitioner, and so that's a whole other conversation. about the healing power of the breath and how it's at the core of all spiritual traditions and spiritual practices. And so my website is soulfulpower.com. And if people will visit it and they, there's a little place where they can register to be on my email list. They'll get a chapter from the book. They'll get a set of power practices and a guided meditation on trust, which I think it's a great thing to, especially as entrepreneurs, to develop that trusting relationship with life, with the universe, that allows us to take these steps that sometimes feels we're stepping into the void. And so thank you so much, Altovise, for the opportunity and for having me on your show and for everything you do for all our behalf.
My pleasure. My pleasure. I absolutely love this. This has definitely been a journey that I've had to go through, and it was not necessarily the easiest journey, but I'm glad that I did go through it because it put me in a much better position. Um, as opposed to, prior to, I can look back over the years and say, wow, yeah, I wasn't living at my fullest, potential. I wasn't living at my fullest capacity. And it's done. That part is past, but I can live out the rest of these days to my fullest capacity. That part is important.
Beautiful, beautiful. All the more power to you.
SpeakEasy Podcast listeners, this is all about you. Why? Because we want to see you excel in life and in business. So with that being said, let us know how this episode resonated with you by leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform, or you can also join the conversation, bit.ly/World Voice Community. We would love to sit down and have a moment to talk to you, because guess what? It's time for us to excel, and we can do so together. With that being said, I'm Altovise Pelzer, and you all have a great day. Until next time, don't forget to press it out. See ya.